I'm gonna start recording. All right. Can anybody hear me? Loud and clear. Awesome. Okay. Wonderful. So what I'm going to do to start out, just so that I know who I'm talking to, I'm going to put up a poll. If you can just answer that, it's a one-question poll, and it basically asks how you're currently managing your inventory. So go ahead and fill that out. Hoping you guys are doing well. See some familiar names here. Okay, good. Excel, seller board. Wonderful. Yeah, we get a lot of people coming in who've been using Excel. That's a very common one to see. All right. So I will go ahead and, okay, we've got pretty much everyone. Other software. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. All right, so I am Chelsea Cohen. I'm the co-founder of SoStocks.com, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you should be doing in terms of adopting inventory management techniques and strategies in order to be able to manage your inventory correctly, especially now because of coronavirus. It's been a very hot topic. People who thought they had things very well organized are currently scrambling now, and some of that is unavoidable just because it's a very different time. But what do we do now? How do we adopt these strategies moving forward so that we can kind of lessen the loss? And I wanted to kind of show you what happens when you don't have good systems in place. Let me go ahead and I'll share my screen. We've got a little presentation. All right. Okay, this is called Pro Amazon Inventory Secrets to Increase Your Bottom Line. Best practices for keeping in stock and avoiding costly inventory mistakes. All right, so yes, a little bit about me. So my name is Chelsea Cohen. If you don't know me, I am an Amazon seller, have been since 2014. And I've also become a copywriting expert for Amazon specifically. There's a specific way to write copy for Amazon. So I've worked with a lot of Amazon sellers, including 7- and 8-figure Amazon sellers, to increase their conversion rates, to get, some of them have gotten up to 2, 6, and even 8 times the sales that they had previously. I've also been featured on AM/PM podcasts. I've been featured on Seller Stories with Jungle Scout. I've been on the Amazing Summit stage in 2017. And most recently, I've been working on a software, as you probably know. So the reason that I decided to build SoStocks, I had a couple of different problems going on. I had a problem where I had an inventory mistake that stranded a bunch of inventory during Christmas that cost us basically all of our Christmas sales. And it was just missing the, missing the boat, not physically missing the boat, but just missing out by, I think, about 3-4 days after the cutoff period. And our stuff got completely stranded in the middle of an Amazon, basically in the middle of an Amazon parking lot. And they said they lost it. So it is extremely important that you get your inventory in on time. And that was something that we tended to struggle with. We've stocked out for a month at a time, a couple of different times. We ordered a product and ended up spending thousands of dollars in storage fees and loan interest to pay it off. We didn't cycle through that product for about 2.5 years. So type in the chat if this is at all familiar to you, if this is something that you have dealt with, is stocking out or over ordering, overestimating holiday orders. Let's see. Okay. Okay, good. So I knew that I needed a solution, right? So what happened? I ended up meeting this guy. So I decided I needed to build out a software. And 2 weeks after deciding that, I ran into Dan Fernandez. Now, Dan Fernandez is a founder of Thomason. And he's basically a serial SaaS builder. So he builds software as a service. And so he was at this Amazon event. We had both become speakers at this Amazon event, and we hung out during that weekend. And he was basically saying that he was bored and he needed a new project. And I was standing over here going, there hasn't been a solution that I've been able to find. I had, spreadsheets. I tried to build it out in, the software Airtable. I tried Forecastly. It didn't make sense to me. I tried Skubana, and they wanted to charge me $2,000 a month. So I knew there was a solution that was needed, and a bunch of my friends in various masterminds were also having the same issues. So I thought, well, if I can just find somebody, and then 2 weeks later, literally 2 weeks after deciding that, I ran into Dan, and we decided to go into business together, creating SoStocked. So what is SoStocked? Okay, so SoStocked, we've spent the last year and a half with our team basically eating, sleeping, and breathing nothing but Amazon inventory management and forecasting. And we've tested all of the inventory management softwares out there, and we've taken the techniques, the spreadsheets, the systems of 7- and 8-figure Amazon sellers, and basically crowdsourced information to better understand what are the best elements needed for good inventory management, and how can we put that together in a way that makes sense for sellers. So we had a lot of feedback. We basically, at the end of the year, completely, with the feedback we got, completely got rid of our algorithm and created a brand new system. And after that happened, people started really catching on to the software because we had done something different than anyone else was doing. So that was the big aha moment, was that we were able to find out what was it that people liked about Excel, and how could we put that into a software? Because everyone is trying to give you custom algorithms, and that's not what correct inventory management is all about, and as we have found with working with these top sellers. Okay, so here's a disclaimer. So this is not something that's necessarily going to blow your mind, right? It's inventory management. So it's not going to necessarily blow your mind, but if I do my job right today, you will change your mind. My objective is to change your viewpoint on the importance of inventory management, and to help you to see what tools and systems you can put in place to be able to avoid the inventory problems that you may be having, and to also see the amount of damage that can be done with improper inventory management. It's something that we don't really pay attention to, but whether you're over ordering or stocking out, there is a big impact that can be had on your business as a whole and on your growth. And if you're having trouble with cash flow, or you're having trouble with scaling, inventory management is a big part of why you're probably having trouble with your cash flow. So I like to say that it's the boring things that nobody talks about that will make you the most money in the long run, right? You've got a bunch of people who talk about launching and ranking and all of these things, but it's been interesting that the things that we sometimes most care about are things like saving on taxes, or managing our inventory, or understanding sales tax, all of these little kind of tiny things that make a big difference, or organizing, time management. These types of things are the boring things that, they're not really the sexy things to talk about, but they can make you a lot of money. Sourcing is another one we talk about. We have a whole sourcing series, and that's not something that is necessarily extremely sexy, but when you start looking at the numbers, it becomes sexy pretty quick. So the more control that you have in your business, the more income you can create. So there are 3 simple problems in inventory management that we've identified. So if you're using straight unfiltered data to gauge your inventory needs, whether doing a crude estimate for this quarter based on last quarter's sales, or something more complex like an average of 180, 90, 60, and 30-day averages, chances are that you've got data inside of those numbers that is throwing off your projections. So whether it's telling you to order too much or telling you to order too little, if you don't get granular enough with your data, you have a chance of over or under ordering. So for example, if you had a sales spike that is rolled up into that calculation, chances are that you're going to be over ordering. And especially if you're having to pull out a loan and pay interest on a loan, you're paying a lot in fees. If you have to store that product, you're going to be paying storage fees as well. So these are just the tiny little things that really get to affecting your bottom line. So let's talk about the first problem. The first problem is under ordering, right? So one of the things that we do is we factor in stockouts. Now, whether you're using your SoStocked or you're using Excel or you're using some other system, it's really important to factor stockouts into your calculations. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how stockouts are calculated, because I did see there are a couple of people using softwares. If you don't know how your software is calculating the stockouts, you should really dig into that and make sure that you understand that and make sure they're calculating it the right way. Okay, so if you're looking at an average of 30, 60, 90, and 180 days worth of sales, your average velocity is 100 units per day in this scenario. So you've got a projection that looks like this: 100 units a day, fairly consistently across your entire spread. So the average velocity is 100 a day. A 2-month order would be 6,000 units for this product. But if in the exact same scenario you had a stock out for 2 weeks in the last 60 days, but did not factor it in, your average velocity would incorrectly drop down to 88 units per day, right? Because we're taking a weighted average of all of these different dates, and you can see how starting in the 60-day mark, there's a significant change in the statistics. So your 2-month order at that point would be estimated at just under 5,300 units. If you placed the order based on this faulty forecasting, your 2-month order would be short 700 units. If your profit was $5 per unit, you would be showing a loss of $3,500, right? Or if you had to then airship something, you would be paying extra air freight costs. So if you're wondering why you are having to air freight more often or rush your orders, it could be that you're not factoring any stockouts. And stockouts don't just include stocking out, they also include the account suspensions. Account suspensions should be counted in your stockouts. So I'm going to hop on over to how we do this in SoStocked, and I'm going to talk about calculations, right? The way that a stockout needs to be calculated. So something to think of, no matter what your system is, your stockout needs to be calculated in a specific way. And so that's something that I would dig into right now, no matter what your system is. So we're going to look at, for example, here is our test account, and here's our stockout feature. So if you click into it, you're going to see all of these days that are located as stockouts. And that's actually, I think we have another one that's more current to stockouts. Okay, so you can see that this product has stocked out. So you can see all these zeros. Now, a stock out should be calculating not just a zero or zero inventory. Some algorithms look simply at whether you have inventory in stock or not. First off, that's going to miss any suspensions. And suspensions will throw off all your numbers just like a stock out will, and they should be treated like a stock out. So whatever system you're using should not be simply looking at the amount of inventory in stock. It should be looking at sales patterns, and it should not be just calling zero a stock out. Because as you can see, this product is showing 0 sales for this period, and then there's 1 sale here, and then there's 0, and then there's 1 sale here. So what this shows is that this product stocked out, but that Amazon actually found a couple of items here and there that it was able to sell with throughout stock out. So in that case, you didn't close your account, and Amazon then found an item here and there that seemed to be missing before and sold it. It's also, if you calculate it this way, it's also, we're counting on 30% of the average sales, right? If you sell 100 units a day, when it goes down to 30 sales or less, it's going to count that as the start of a stock out. Because when you stock out, you don't just stock out and hit zero immediately. You have one day that has lower sales going out, and then when you come back in stock, you have one day that has lower sales. So if you don't get that entire stock out period, then your average is thrown off. Because if you're basing things on your 30-day average or your 60-day average, and you're not cutting that 2-week period out of that 30 days, you've got a significant number of days that had zero sales, and your entire average is thrown off unless you remove that data. So you readjust the averages. All right, so let's go back to the presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and I will get to them afterwards. If you have questions specific to your own business or anything like that, I'm happy to answer them. Okay, so let's go to problem number 2. So problem number 2 is over ordering, right? And the solution to that is factoring in sales spikes. So you need to be able to identify periods of time that are sales spikes. For example, Prime Day, or maybe there was just, we've had a couple of products where there was a random week of a lot of sales or a random day of a lot of sales, and then it kind of leveled back out. Or you're featured on a news show, or a morning show, your product is featured and you get a bunch of sales that one day. Well, that's not necessarily going to happen. So you need to have a way to identify that, especially if you're looking at a year ago. When you start going into trying to figure out what you're going to be ordering for Christmas and your inventory history, you forgot that there was some Instagram influencer mentioned your product. And so you add all of those sales as your normal Christmas sales, and you're not identifying that big spike, you're going to end up over ordering, and you're going to end up paying more for storage, especially during a time when the fees are generally higher, which is in the Christmas season. And so you'll end up paying, one, you're tying up a lot of capital, and two, you're paying a lot of money for storage. So let's look at the same scenario. Okay, so we're looking at the same scenario. This is an average velocity of 100 units a day, average order of 6,000 units. So this is how sales spikes can hurt. So for example, let's just say Prime Day, and you sold within the 2 days of Prime Day, you sold 4,000 units of additional inventory. The calculation then changes to 116, almost 117 units per day instead. So that increases your monthly order by 1,000 units, over 1,000 units. So if you're over ordering 1,000 units, and say the cost of your per unit is $5 per unit, that's $5,000 in tied up capital during that 2-month period. And if you've got the ability to turn that capital into a 200% return on investment, so if you've got a $5 product that you can sell, for $20, and you end up making $10 per unit, whatever it is, let's say the example, that's $10,000 that you've lost in those 2 months in capital that's tied up because you didn't factor a sales spike in, right? And that's additional storage fees, Amazon lending loan if you borrow money to purchase your inventory. Okay, so you have to have some sort of a system for identifying this, whether you keep track of it in a spreadsheet, which is kind of clunky. We've found there were a lot of variables that made it very difficult to keep track of all this stuff, especially when we're solopreneurs, we're doing a lot of the work ourselves. or you've got a VA who maybe doesn't understand the nuances of the business as well as you do, your ordering is only as good as the data that you have. So if you don't keep track of your data, it can become pretty messy, and you can make mistakes like over ordering because of a sales spike. So this is what we do with sales spikes. We're able to then identify a sales spike. And so what we do, for example, you have a product that has, you know, average sales, six units a day, average sales, but there was the locating of a freak day of sales that was 79 sales in one day. What we're looking at is we're looking at anything that's 150% of your average sales for the period or higher. So we're then able to identify all of the days that had extremely high sales. And what you can do is you can include that and make sure that that does not taint your sales projections, right? And you don't have to necessarily remember those things. They're then identified. If you do want to include that information, though, you can turn it on and put that information back into the calculation if it was accurate. So we're always allowing you to control all of the data. But that's the importance of locating these things, finding all of the places where there might be these sales spikes and how they could potentially affect your business. Okay, so now the problem of cutting it too close. This was probably the biggest problem that we had. And it's one of those of running out of inventory for maybe a week. You know, you're always cutting it too close. There's something that goes wrong, some sort of minor delays. You order at the last possible time, and then something comes up and, you know, your stuff doesn't get in on time, and you have this couple of days that you're out of stock, right? It could be a week that you're out of stock. And even if you barely close that gap, Amazon still, while they're checking your stuff in, they might indicate on your listing that your items won't be in stock for another week, even though your stuff is still there. So it's important to get there early, because you'll have a couple of days where Amazon is telling customers that your product is not going to be able to be shipped out for a week from now, even though it's sitting there. And we know that's not true. They always check it in faster, but it always tends to hurt our sales even while we get back in stock. So the solution to that is buffer stock, also known as safety stock. Also, I call it a false zero. So this is how buffer stock works. So buffer stock is a false zero that triggers you to order before you hit your preset buffer stock amount. Right, so if you had a preset buffer stock of 25 units or 250 units, you would be alerted to start the reorder process in time to fulfill before you hit your 250 units, not before you hit zero, right? So that's pretty important. If there's anything that comes up, say you've got, you know, a hurricane off the coast of China, you get stuck in customs, your supplier runs a few days late, any of these things that can happen, that is all the more reason to have a buffer stock. And I always get the question, how much buffer stock should I have, right? What is a good buffer stock amount? So the way that I look at it, and what we personally do and has been effective, is to create a different buffer stock depending on the scenario. So if you have, let's see, let me share this. Okay, so we'll go through buffer stock a little bit, but if you have inventory that's sitting in a third-party warehouse and it takes you 10 days to ship it into Amazon, your buffer stock probably doesn't need to be as large as it does if you're sending straight from China and you have a 90-day lead time. because within that 90 days, you have a lot more opportunity to have things go wrong, right? The longer the timeline and the more times your inventory it changes hands, the more opportunity there is for delays, and the longer your lead time should be. So that's always a good rule of thumb, is to estimate your buffer stock based on how quickly you can get your inventory there and how many people are going to be in possession of your inventory. So let me show you how a buffer stock would work. Okay. So let's say that this product, we'll say it sells Okay, so there are actually two buffer stocks. If you have a warehouse, there are actually two buffer stocks that you should be using. But this is how a buffer stock would work. So this one, you can see that without a buffer stock, we're being told to ship from our warehouse on June 18th. It's going to arrive on the 28th because it's a 10-day transfer, and it's going to arrive right before I hit 0, right? My last 3, and then I hit 0. And my transfer will arrive right on time. That is always too close for comfort. So what you really need to be doing is adding a buffer stock. Now, buffer stock can be done in units or it can be done in days. And if you have a product that's very seasonal, the best solution is to do it by days. It's actually, I would say, the best solution would be in general to do it by days. You can definitely do it in units, but the reason that you would want to do it in days is it would be a dynamic and changing buffer stock. That means that if you have a summer product and your product sells 100 units a day in the summer, your buffer stock has got to be a lot larger than if it was in the winter and it only sold, 30 units a day. You don't need as much buffer stock if a product is moving that slowly. If you have it set to units, that's a very fixed, finite amount. So your buffer stock will be fluid based on your velocity during that period of time. So that's your FBA buffer stock. The other place you should have buffer stock is a warehouse buffer stock. And the warehouse buffer stock should be larger because it's always going to be coming from China, right? Or wherever you source. It's always going to have a longer lead time than your FBA buffer stock if you have a warehouse that can easily send inventory in. And it, again, works the same way. You can do it in days or you can do it in units. All right, so now here comes, in terms of planning, I wanted to talk about, that's kind of the crux of, those are the things that you should have set up, and those are some of the best practices for managing your inventory. But there are different things. There's forecasting, and there's inventory management, and there's also inventory planning. And I think that a big part of what people have trouble with is they don't have the foresight to do inventory planning, right? They look at past sales and they look at the past and they decide that's, I'm just going to do what I did before. And they don't take the time to actually sit down and plan out and actually be proactive. And then they can't do the promotions that they want to do, right? If you have, for example, you're going to start a new sponsored ad campaign. If you're going to start a new sponsored ads campaign and you're going to be aggressive, especially if you're paying someone to help you with it. If you contract someone to help you with crafting a sponsored ads campaign and they don't first look at whether you have the inventory to sustain something like that, you need to take a step back and actually model out and plan out and make sure before you push the button on that sponsored ads campaign that your inventory can actually support the increase that you plan to get. So there are a couple of tips in terms of getting into the mode of inventory planning and factoring in things like lightning deals and seasonal sales spikes. So we have a couple of tools that we use, right? If you're using Excel, I've seen people build this into Excel spreadsheets. I don't know if all of the other tools have these features, and that has been a shortfall of some of these tools, is they don't have inventory planning features, right? They can take your projections based on past sales, on past data, but don't have areas where you can actually plan for increases, plan for growth, plan for sales, and that type of thing. So you should have a seasonality and a lightning deals or a deals feature, right? So our seasonality looks like this, for example. You wanted to do, you say June is a period where your sales increase significantly. You can say my sales double in June. You can actually add that and model that out, right? So you can see that it went from 3 to 6 sales, and it's telling you which seasonal spike that is, right? And then if we wanted to go in and add a lightning deal, right? And you can use the lightning deal feature for anything that is a sale. Maybe you're doing a Memorial Day sale, right? I've got a client who's going to be doing a Memorial Day sale Friday through Monday, and say, I expect to sell, 500 units during that period of time. So I've had people who have had to cancel, let's see. Oh, there's a stock out there. Let's do this. Let's do Prime Day. I've had people have to cancel lightning deals because they didn't have the inventory. And that's simply because they didn't do the inventory planning. So you can see here, the lightning deal shows up here. So it behooves you to do inventory planning and not just inventory management and not just forecasting, because all of that has to do with what happened before, and it's reactionary. So the idea is that you get into being proactive with estimating your true inventory needs, and then you get into inventory planning and you're actually being proactive. So those are some of the things that we put into our business. We recommend all of our own software users use within their business, because these are the ways that you're going to actually, not just be continually reacting to what Amazon is doing, but you're actually, consistently in stock, and you're able to then find new ways to drive the revenue because you have the inventory to back it up. Okay, so now what? So, and if anyone has any questions, any specific questions, do feel free to post them in the chat now. This is definitely one of our shorter webinars. This is very, want to just be very direct and specific as to some of those. There's not a lot of super complex things that you need to do. Inventory management is and could be a very complex thing, and I think that too many inventory management softwares out there make it seem like it's too complex and you can't understand it. There's inventory management softwares that say, they don't tell you the algorithm. They say, that it's a highly advanced algorithm based on statisticians and inventory managers. But numbers are numbers and math is math. And Amazon sellers have been doing their own inventory management successfully for a long time. It's just a matter of knowing what numbers are most important, knowing how to pick out the outliers and smooth out the actual velocity, and then being proactive with some of these, buffers that allow you to stay in stock without completely over ordering. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a couple of questions before we move on. Okay, question about the software. Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and I'll talk a little bit about the software, since both of the questions are about the software. So, and then I'll get to those specific questions. So yeah, so we had gone through a revolving door of softwares, and we saw within the Amazon space that there was a revolving door of softwares, and everybody ended up at the doorstep of the Excel spreadsheet again, right? There's always trying these new things and then coming back to the Excel spreadsheet. And that's what we realized, right? We realized that Excel spreadsheets were basically the industry standard, and that no one had seemed to get it really right. So we thought, it was basically, I felt like I was wasting hours upon hours, and, what are we, cavemen? Like, we're in the 21st century. We need to evolve and adapt, right? We needed a better mousetrap. So we set to work to do this, and there were a lot of moving parts. And when it really happened was when we had this aha moment. And that aha moment is that inventory management is both science and art, right? And yet most inventory management softwares are only addressing the science. So you know your business better than an algorithm, better than an inventory management software. And that's why most inventory management softwares suck, because they take the science and they give you the numbers and they spit them out to you and they say, here's your number, believe it and trust it even though you don't understand it. And you can't change it, you can't manipulate it, you can't make it respond to, real life and what your plans are for your business. And so we, like I said at the beginning, we overhauled our entire algorithm and we threw it out. We got rid of it. And we looked at Excel and we said, what are people able to do in Excel that they're not able to do in these other inventory management platforms? Why do they keep quitting them and going to Excel? And when we answer that question, that's when the word of mouth started picking up on SoStock. And it was basically, it's understandable, right? You know all the numbers. There's a calculator you can click on in our software that'll give you all the numbers and all the math that breaks down the order recommendations that we give. So you understand the numbers fully and you can customize the numbers. You can manipulate the numbers. There's so many different data points that you can put in there based on your unique knowledge of your business. So you're able to then add the art to the inventory management that has been missing for a long time. And then it's also automatic, it's automated. You don't have to plug in those numbers and waste the hours of time. We talked to one of our users, he and his team spend 80 hours a week on inventory management because they've got tens of thousands of SKUs. So it takes a lot of that time out of it, right? Okay. So here's what we're offering right now. And I will get to the questions. There are a couple of questions about the software. We don't have a free offer on our website. We are actually in our second round of beta. And what that means is that we personally onboard and consult. So we are offering right now, just for this webinar, 1 month of free for SoStock. That's something that you won't find on our website. We don't offer free trials because we are working directly with the users and we want to know the features and the tweaks to be made so that it fits within your business and it helps to free up your time. So we talk a lot with our users right now. So we're offering 1 month free of SoStock, right? So try SoStock, give it a try. This is, again, only for people who are on this webinar. And then we'll personally get a one-on-one inventory management coaching session with myself, where I will help show you how to use SoStock and put in the specific points within SoStock that will help you to smooth out your inventory management system. I will also give you access to my copywriting masterclass. So at the beginning, I said that I have, a copywriting business that I have helped, my clients and my students with copywriting. Copywriting is one of the biggest ways, the biggest, fastest way to increase your sales without spending a dime. And it's far underutilized. I look at Amazon listings and there are a lot of people who are underutilizing the copywriting feature and they're leaving a lot of money on the table. So you'll get access to that masterclass where I explain my entire process, exactly how I do what I do for my clients. And then Thomason, access to Thomason, my business partner's business, thomason.com. It's an influencer brand connector. So it is designed to help to get brands out there by connecting you with influencers and getting your brand and your products known. So that's 2 free months of the unlimited level, the highest level of access, right? So again, the free trial, you get a free trial, and then it's $59 a month for life after that. So that's, someone had asked about the price. It's 30 days free and then $59 a month for life. Now we are going to be, we're very close to closing our second round of beta. It's going to be closing pretty soon. We're coming up on the end of the goal for that. And so it will be going up again, and then soon after we'll go up again till we land on our final price. And we will also be releasing a tiered structure where your orders will, you'll be charged per order. So if you have a lot of orders that you're doing every single month, you might be in a higher payment tier. So this one locks your price in. So again, free trial locks your price in for life. And whether you decide to keep it after the free trial or not, you keep all that stuff. You keep the 2 months of access to Thomason, as well as the copywriting masterclass. And then, so that's at the sostock.com/webinar-lifetime offer. Let me go ahead and drop that in the chat for you. Okay, and then I wanted to get to these questions. So the software is really amazing. What is the price? Yes, so it's $59 a month. Yeah, so we'll probably land on $99 a month for our lowest tier when we do get to that point. We have been kind of tiering it up based on the data, the beta testers who are involved. And yeah, and then it will be a tiered pricing. And then I also got a question. Does your inventory manager integrate with FBA only, or are you guys building out other marketplace integrations? So we will be building out other marketplace integrations. We will probably be starting with Shopify. And you currently are able to pull in the velocities for anything that you're fulfilling through Amazon. So if you fulfill it through Amazon, we can get that data and it can be pulled in. If you're fulfilling it from a third party, we would have to add that. That's one of the plans, is to add those integrations. We did early on talk to Deliver, and we talked to the CEO of Deliver, and he's very interested in having us, work with his API when the time comes. So we will definitely be doing that. And the other thing that we have found with our awesome beta testers most recently is that if you have FBM where you're fulfilling, because there's a lot of people right now because of coronavirus who weren't able to send in their inventory and had to fulfill by FBM. And because we do FBA only, it wasn't pulling that data in, but we have found a workaround so that we can actually pull in the FBM velocities as well. So if you have any FBM stuff, the velocities are accessible through the software as well. Anything that goes through Amazon, we can get that. All right, let's see. Anything else? I think that's all the questions that we have. So again, free trial, we don't offer free trials, but this is a free trial, and then you can talk to me, get a game plan going for your inventory management system, figure it out, see if you like the software, and if not, just keep the free bonuses as a thank you for trying it out. Last thing I'm going to leave you with, and again, that's sostock.com/webinar-lifetime-offer. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is we've got a webinar series that we do. This has been a very successful webinar series for us, and it's based on supply chain. It's based on your entire logistics and how to keep more money. It's on the premise of the fact that you should be making money when you buy, not just when you sell. And so we talk a lot about how to find better suppliers, how to get better HTS codes to improve, the tariffs. We personally got destroyed in tariffs a couple years ago. We went from 0% to 25% duties on one of our main sellers. So we are working with this company. This is Afulabi. He has a company called Hanu, and he is working with us to completely overhaul our entire supply chain. And he speaks on this, and he's been doing this for decades, for several decades. So his next one is called How to Decrease Fees Across Your Entire Supply Chain. And that's going to be on June 4th. And then he will also be doing one on Chinese trademarks and why they could be vital to your business. That's at sostocks.com/seller-secrets. All right, we have a couple more comments. Can the bonuses be used at any time, or do they have to be used during sign up? No, that's a good point. So the bonuses can be used at any time. And we recognize that there are some people who were not in stock for certain products. And so if you want to, for example, when you get back in stock, work with an influencer on Thomason, that would be the point at which you should go and get your Thomason account for sign up. The copywriting masterclass will be available to you at any time, and you'll keep it, it's a lifetime access. So you can use that at that time. And then someone said, missed the webinar. Is there going to be a recording? Yes, there will definitely be a recording. I will be sending the recording out after it's done uploading. So I will definitely get that out to you. And we also put them on our YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and you search So Stocked, no space, just So Stocked, one word, you will find our channel, and you can follow us there. And then anytime we have a new replay, we would load it up there, and you can watch them there as well. All right, but look for your email because they will be sent out in your email. All right, I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for joining us, and hope you have an awesome day.